What about his reputation? What do you think about all these interviews? Do you think they are helping him? Do you think they're good for the world? Do you think they're bad for the world? Like, what's your sense? And like, say you get a sit down interview with him for 3 hours, and I'm holding the door closed. What kind of, is that a useful conversation or not? Or at this point, it should be legal, and that's it.
I think it's useful. I mean, I think it's all about how you interview him. You can interview someone responsibly. You can interview him irresponsibly. I think we've seen examples of both.
What's an irresponsible? I keep interrupting you rudely.
That's okay. No.
This is unacceptable.
No. I think it's fine. There was like a New York Times interview, which spends any amount of time talking about his sleep. And he's like, yeah, I'm sleeping great. I mean, I think that's so deeply disrespectful to the victims. And especially when you're not even releasing an interview live. It's like you have time to triage what you're going to talk about. Why would you spend any amount of time talking about the sleep that a fraudster is getting? It's just so weird. And
it's can I steel man in that case? I don't think it turned out well.
I think
okay, here's the thing. I could see myself talking about somebody's sleep or getting in somebody's mind if I knew I have unlimited time with them. If I knew I had like 4 hours, because you get into the mind of the person, how they think, how they see the world, because I think that ultimately reveals, if they're actually really good at lying, it reveals the depths, the complexity of the mind, that through like osmosis, you get to understand like this person is not as trivial as you realize. Also, it makes you maybe realize that this person has a lot of hope, has a lot of positive ambition, that's like, that has developed over their life, and then certain interesting ways things went wrong.
Yes.
They become corrupt and all that kind of stuff.
That's all fine. But this conversation was not properly contextualized.
Yes.
In the world of what he did. I've asked about this interview because I was like so curious. It was out of the New York Times. And there was not much mention of fraud or jail or the big crimes, like misappropriation of even client assets. It was just sort of this, Sam sat down with me. He's under investigation, but there's not much specifics. And then it's like, yeah, he's playing storybook brawl. He's sleeping. And it's just like, okay, this isn't adding to the conversation.
No. Especially when they're in the New York Times, it's like you should be grilling.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So, but as I've said, I mean, it's all ranged the gamut. And some interviews, like some of it's okay, and then some of it's weird. Like the Andrew Sorkin interview, he asked some hard-hitting questions, which I really appreciated. And then at the end, he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Bankman-Fried," and everyone gives like an ovation for Sam. I mean, the steel man of that, of course, is like they're actually applauding Andrew Sorkin. But the way you like lay it up, I wouldn't go like, "Ladies and gentlemen." It's like an applause line. It's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Eagles, Elton John, Lex Fridman." Yeah. And so so you have this like deal book summit where you have all these important figures that are positively important. And at the end, you have Sam Bankman-Fried, a fraudster, and you go, "Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Bankman-Fried," everyone's applauding. That I think is I think that's a negative. I think the way that the optics of that just were all wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think, you have to be very responsible. I think it's useful, going back to how you can usefully do this. You can, even when somebody's determined to lie to you, it's always important to pin them down to an accounting of events, because that is unimaginably helpful when it comes to a prosecutor trying to prove this guy's guilty. Is if you say you didn't do a crime, but you don't tell me any details about it, day of the trial, you can basically make up any story, right? But if you tell me in detail where you were that day, I can go hunt down, you say you were with Joe, I go hunt down Joe and he says he wasn't with you, boom, you've lost credibility, and now you're much more likely to be convicted. So it's really important to get SBF's exact accounting of how things went wrong, because right now he's positioning himself to throw his Alameda CEO, Caroline Ellison, under the bus. Like, she did everything, she knew everything, I knew nothing. Well, is Caroline Ellison's going to take the stand and go, "Well, I have all these text messages and this is all a lie," and then Sam Bankman-Fried is going to be completely, ruined, like self-ruined by his own design. So I think it's
more like a legal type of like get the details of where he was, what he was thinking, what the.
I think it's like, I think the public probably cares to get to know what happened too. And again, I think if you're careful, you can expose someone for as they lie to you without giving into those lies, right? Like without capitulating to, oh, I'm just going to assume you're correct. I think you can point to, well, Lex, you say it happened this way, but you've lied about X, Y, and Z. Why should we believe you? That's suddenly a totally different conversation than just being like, oh, okay, that's how it happened.
The thing I caught that bothered me, and the thing I hope to do in interviews um, if I eventually get good at this thing, is the human aspect of it, which I think you have to do in person. Is he seems a bit nonchalant about the pain and the suffering of people. I have red flags about in the way he communicates about the loss of money, like the pain that people are feeling about the money. I get red flags. Like you're not forget if you're involved in that pain or not. You're not feeling that pain.
Well,
Like
he'll say he is, but he'll be playing a game of League of Legends while doing it.
no, but I just see it
Yeah,
from his face. The
no,
dynamic,
I know,
and that's
I
what
know.
needs to be grilled.
Yeah,
Like that little human dance there. That's I mean I considered. I talked to him. I considered doing an in-person interview with him. And in that
are you still considering it?
I don't know. Do you think I should in person?
I think it depends if you think you have anything to add to the conversation. A lot of people have
Yeah, there's been
interviewed
already.
him.
You did an incredible job.
Thanks. I think
I think I would like to grill the shit out of him as a fellow human,
yeah.
but not investigative
No,
like
no, I
Coffeezilla
know.
investigator.
Yeah.
Like another human being who I can have compassion for, who has caused a lot of suffering in the world. Like that grilling, like basically convey the anger that people and the pain that people are feeling, right? Like that.
Yeah. I think it'd be really hard. I mean, like that guy is sort of a master dancer, and what he would say at the end of it, because I've listened to so many interviews of him, I probably am like a GPT model for Sam. I think he would do some kind of thing about like, yeah, I really hear you, and you know, it's just terrible. I feel such an obligation to the people who've lost money, and you know, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. You know, he'd do something like that, and it would be very superficially like okay, but when you drill down to the details of what he did, it's just impossible that he didn't know. And one of the things that I wish I had asked, maybe I can talk about like I wish I had gone on this. It's just so hard when you're doing a live interview to kind of focus on one thing. Everyone's asked about the terms of service. So in the terms of service, there was like, we can't touch your funds. Your funds are safe. We're never going to do anything with that. Anytime anyone brings that up, he says, oh, well, there's this other terms of service over here with margin trading accounts. Remember, we talked about it. It's a derivatives platform. If you're in our derivatives side, you're subject to different terms of service, which kind of lets us like move your money around with everyone else. Okay. So we treat it as one big pool of funds. And that's sort of the explanation of how this all happened is we had this huge leverage position and we lost everything. But what no one has sort of done a good enough job getting to the heart of is that this pool of funds never was segregated properly. It was all treated under the same umbrella of we can use your funds. There was no amount of we have the client deposits, which were just deposited with us and not like used to margin trade or do anything over here. These funds over here, we have saved. They didn't. Fundamentally, they lied from the get-go about how they were treating the most precious assets, which is your customer deposits that you said you didn't invest. Clearly, you put them all over here, you YOLO gambled them, and then when everyone starts withdrawing from here, they don't have any money over here. So that is like one of the most fundamental things that I haven't seen anyone grill him on. And the next time, if I get the chance to ambush him again, that's what I'm going to drill down on because it's impossible for that not to be fraud. There's no world where you had a pool of funds over here and now you don't have them without you somehow borrowing over here. Because if you deposited one Bitcoin and I never sold that Bitcoin and it's earmarked Lex Fridman and you come and it's not there, something had to happen, right?
Well, so this is so interesting. So for me, the approach that, like you said, the most important question of because for you it's like, were those funds segregated? For me, the question is, as a human being,
Yeah.
How would you feel if you're observing that? So like, that like marshmallow test with the babies, like it's the human thing. This is a human nature question. Like, I can understand there's a pile of money and the good faith interpretation is like, well, I know what to do with that pile of money to grow that pile of money. Let me just take a little bit of it. Like, how willing are you to do that kind of thing? How able are you to do that kind of thing? And when shit goes wrong, what goes through your mind? How does it become corrupted? How do you begin to delude yourself? How do you delegate responsibility for the
Right.
failures? Like, as opposed to getting facts, try to sneak into the human mind of a person when they're thinking that. Because the facts, they're going to start waffling. They're going to start like trying to make sure they don't say anything that gets them incriminated.
Right.
But I want to understand the human being there, because I think that indirectly gives you a sense of where were you in this big picture.
I think I've talked to so many people who have sort of committed some range of like outright fraud to like misleading marketing. No one thinks they're a bad person. Nobody admits that they did it and they knew they did, or almost nobody does. There's actually one funny exception, but I had a guy who admitted like, yeah, I did it. It was wrong. And, but I did it and I wanted the money, which was kind of like almost refreshing in its honesty. But the reason I focus on like the facts is because unless you find a bright red line, humans can rationalize anything. I can rationalize any level of like, well, I did this because I had the best of intentions. And if you play the intention game, you'll never convict anyone because everyone has good intentions. Everyone's honest. Everyone's doing the best they can and got misleaded and got misguided and da-da-da-da. Ultimately, you have to drill down to the concrete and go, look, I get it. You're just like the last 50 guys that I interviewed. You had the best of intentions. It all went wrong. I'm very sorry for you. But at the end of the day, there's people hurting and there's people that have significant damage to their life because of you. What did you actually do? And what can we prove, taking intention out of it, taking motivation out? What can we prove that you did that was unethical, illegal, or immoral? And like that is sort of what usually I try to go to because I will do those human interviews, but it's like the same record on repeat. I mean, a lot of people go through the same.
I'm with you. I'm with you on everything you said, but there is ways to avoid the record on repeat. I mean, those are different skill set. You're exceptionally good at the investigating. I do believe there's a way to break through the repeat. There's the different techniques to it.
Yeah.
One of which is like taking outside of their particular story. Yes, when everyone looks at their own story, they can see themselves as a good player doing good.
Right.
But you can do other thought experiments. I mean, there's.
But they'll follow you. They'll know what the thought experiment is.
No, well, it depends. It depends, my friend. I mean, to me. There's a million of them, but just exploring your ethics. Would you kill somebody to protect your family? And you explore that. You start to sneak into like, what's your sense of the in-group versus the out-group? How much damage you can do to the out-group, and who is the out-group? And you start to build that sense of the person. Are we like the two mobsters that we're dressed as? Do we protect the family and fuck everyone else? You're with us, and the ones who are against us, fuck them. Or do we have a sense that human beings are all have value, equal value, and we want to we're a joint humanity? There's ways to get to that, and you start to build up this sense of like some people that make a lot of money are better than others. They deserve to be at the top. If you have that feeling, you start to get a sense of like, yeah, the poor people are the dumbasses. They're the idiots. If you believe that, then you start to understand that this person may have been at the core of this whole corrupt organization.
Two things. One, I think you should join me on this side of the table. We'll put SBF over here.
Yeah.
We'll good guy, bad guy, human, facts. Like
you're the bad guy. I'm like, no. Slow down, coffee.
What is your feeling about humanity? Yeah,
have you been getting enough sleep?
Yeah, right. So I think there's a lot of truth to what you said. One thing I've noticed that is hard to combat is sort of like preference falsification and just the outright lying about those things is tough to kind of pin down. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's ways to interview people. There's all sorts of interesting techniques. And yeah, I don't disagree.
Good cop, bad cop. We should do this. Should be like a sitcom. Okay.